So, how did you get the ideas of your books and what inspired you or who?
I got the idea for the Keeper of the Lost City series from my love of Legolas from Lord of the Rings, and also my love of X-Men. I sort of call that series Lord of the Rings meets X-Men. And Let the Sky Fall actually came from, I had discovered sylphs when I was doing research for the Keeper series, and I knew instantly they didn't belong in the Keeper series, but I knew I also loved them, and so it took me a couple of years before I finally figured out what I wanted to do with them, and it came from just being fascinated by wind, which I know makes me sound really weird, but wind is kind of crazy that it can be a really gentle breeze or a tornado that destroys an entire town. So being able to control that, what kind of person would that be, and the more I thought about that, the more the series sort of shaped itself.
Okay, that's cool. So this question is separated into a few different questions. Okay. So, how do you write? What's the process? And do you have any specific routine you like to do before you start writing? Any favorite places to write, maybe?
I have learned, because my deadlines are so tight, that I have learned how to write anywhere.
Okay.
Planes, hotels, everything, because I have to. But when I have a choice, I prefer to start the day revising everything I wrote the day before, because it helps me to remember sort of where I'm at, and fix. I try not to revise stuff that would be silly to change at that point, but if there's something where the plot starts to feel like it's going weird or something, try to fix that. And then I usually write best at night. So I tend to do revision during the day and new words at night. And lately, because I've been on such tight deadlines, that I've had to start working on a reward system. where I'll go and buy a box of my favorite chocolates, and I'll tell myself I can't have one until I write 1,000 words. So I know it kind of turns myself into the equivalent of like a dog begging for treats, but will work for treats. But it really, especially when you're on a stubborn chapter or you're tired, knowing, but if I just write 1,000 words, I can have a chocolate. It really helps me power through it.
When I write too, and I usually trick myself during because I won't help myself.
I knew I was going to like you. Sometimes I even line them up on my laptop so they're staring at me, and it's like, no, you can't touch that until you get to that next word chemical.
Yeah. Does it work really well?
It does. I mean, especially when you're, you know, if I had an ideal world, I probably would be someone who wrote about 1,500 words a day, but because of my deadlines, I have to write more like 3,000 to 4,000 words a day, so to sort of bridge that gap, the reward system really helps. And those are words that I keep. I tend to waste as I write, so it'll be, you know, I would love to write 1,500 words that I keep, and I probably write 2,000 words, so when I'm having to write 4,000 words that I keep, that means I write 5,000 words a day, so it's a lot.
So how do you motivate yourself to write 3,000 to 4,000 words a day?
Deadlines are very powerful when you know your editor is going to be mad at you. But it is.
It's not like you can control inspiration, I feel like.
It's not, but it is amazing how if you do in America we call it butt in chair, you know, if you sit in the chair and you say, I'm going to do this now, it might take 30 minutes of writing stuff that's really no, but eventually you will sort of start to get to that point. The only exception I will take is if I'm really starting to feel the exhaustion. I have learned it's not worth it, because I will read it the next day and go, well, so I'm not keeping any of that, and then I wake up exhausted because I stayed up too late. So I'm learning to sort of know my limits. It's usually around the time that I will notice that I sort of dozed off momentarily, like that string of E. One time I fell asleep on the delete key. Not cool. Not cool at all.
Okay, so the next few questions are very easy. Tea or coffee?
I like tea, but I like it iced, which I know is very strange, but hot tea to me tastes like medicine. Because I had to drink it a lot when I was a kid, when I'd get sick. And coffee, I had an ulcer when I was 16. And so ever since then, drinking coffee feels like pouring acid into my stomach. So I drink a lot of tea, but I drink it iced for some weird reason.
And do you drink it iced even in winter?
Yes, but I live in Southern California,
Okay.
so our winter is about 70 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's really not.
Yeah, it's really not.
It's really not winter. In fact, I had to buy a coat this year because I knew I was coming here, and one of my other tour stops was somewhere wintry, and so I had to actually buy my first coat.
Okay. Music or silence?
It depends on the scene. If it is a scene where I'm having to really visualize a lot of action, I have to have silence because I really need to be able to think through. But if it's sort of dialogue and they're sort of talking, then I kind of like to have some music in the background. And the later it gets, the more I lean on having music to sort of have something else to help keep my mind active so I don't fall
Okay, so
asleep.
is there a song that has inspired you while you were writing in that maybe you played over and over again?
Yeah, especially for the Skyfall books, I have a playlist on my website of the songs where even certain plot points sort of were inspired by the songs in there. So the whole idea for it actually came a lot from music. So
Cool. Scrivener or Word?
I'm using both right now because I'm trying to learn Scrivener, but it's still new to me, and it weirds me because I started it in the middle of both of my series. It weirds me out. So I have a new project that I play with, and that one I'm writing in Scrivener. But for the two series that were already in existence, it just was weirding me out to have them in a different format. So when I'm working on those, I'm in Word and I'm learning Scrivener, and I wish I had known it from the very beginning because it does have a lot of cool features.
Yeah, it does.
But it's just hard when everything else is in separate Word docs and trying to like import it all. It was like, this will take me 3 weeks to do this and I don't have time for that. So.
NaNoWriMo.
I have been saddled with a November release date for my books ever since they came out, which means I'm always on tour for 2 to 3 weeks during November. But I usually write about 50 to 60,000 words a month, so every month for me is...
That's impressive.
Every month for me is NaNoWriMo. But I've never been able to officially do it because it's always... My November is always my least productive month because in America when you tour, they book school visits in the morning, and so you are doing events from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. There's no writing time in there, maybe an hour on your lunch break, and so there would be no way to do NaNoWriMo. So I always fail every year at NaNoWriMo. I'm like, November release month!
Are you a planner or a pantser?
I actually fall somewhere in between. I call my method connecting the dots. I know my beginning and my ending, and then 3 or 4 of the big reversals, but I don't exactly know how I'm going to get to them. I like to leave myself some room for discovery, and ironically, the favorite scenes in the books are always the ones I don't plan. So I like to leave room for that, but I write really long books, and if I left it completely to chance, they might twice that, and so it just helps to have some sort of, this is the goal I'm writing for, and some structure.
Are you anxious or calm when you're writing?
Depends on the scene. If it's a funny scene, I'll be very calm. If it is an intense scene, then a lot of times I'm quite stressed, or if it's just a stubborn scene, I'm just like, you know, you get those scenes that just won't cooperate, and you're just like, why? Why won't you work? You worked in my head, why won't you work?
Can you tell us a bit more about character development? What do you look for in a character, and maybe in other books that you found you needed to write about in your books?
I used to, when I first started writing, they have those like character profile sheets with 50 different questions to ask a character, and I found that there was really only one that mattered. I ask each of my characters, what are you hiding from me? Because I feel like we all have a secret, and if I know their secret, I know them, and I own them. I know exactly what they don't want to have revealed, and I know how to push their buttons that way. So that for me is the essence of every character, is to figure out what they don't want people to know, why they don't want people to know it. And then my big, philosophy to approaching characters is I like to let them make mistakes, because I feel like that's real. And especially when you write kid or teen characters, they make mistakes. And sometimes it's because of things the bad guys are doing to them or whatever, but sometimes it's because they made a mistake and now they have to deal with it. So that's sort of my big approach to characters.
romance, maybe?
I have thought about it because I love probably more the sweet romance would be more in my wheelhouse, but so far, every time I've tried to plot something like that, I sort of get to this moment where it's like, but where's the story? If they don't develop magical powers, what's the story here? So I so far have not been able to get my brain to go there, but hopefully someday, because I absolutely love those. I love to read them. I read tons of them, so it would be really fun to write one. I just seem to blank out on, wait, where's the conflict? What's keeping them apart? If they like each other, aren't they just together? You know, so I worry that I would write a boring one. And so until I can figure out how to write a good one, I'll stick with fantasy.
What advice would you give to someone who writes but is struggling?
I think that we put so much pressure on ourselves to get it right the first time. And so we tend to get really frustrated when the scene just isn't working. And I know I feel that all the time, especially when I'm on deadline. It's like, just work, please, I need to get this done. But writing takes practice. And sometimes, for me especially, sometimes I don't know the right way to write the scene until I write it the wrong way. So just let it be bad at first. Give yourself that permission to write a bad scene and take that pressure off yourself and just know you'll fix it. You will be smart enough to fix it. It won't be bad forever, but sometimes you have to leave it bad so that you can get on to the next scene that is good and then you can figure out how to fix the next scene. So give yourself that permission to not force perfection.
Last question, can you tell us a bit more about future projects that include Keeper of the Cities and Escape?
I am working on one, but I've been so deadline, buried with both series that it's been a little hard. I do have another middle grade that is half written, but it was one that I just started writing for me. So sometimes those projects end up getting published and sometimes they end up being too different from your other stuff that, at least in America, they sort of want you to have a brand. So it's too early to tell if it'll ever get published, because it was sort of, when you write series, it's weird. You start to feel like you're writing your own fan fiction. By the time you're writing like 5, it's like, I've written these characters before, so sometimes I just need a break. And so I just wanted to write something completely different, and that is what I've been working on, and it's half done. So we'll see when I finish it if it turns out to be something that we can sell, or if I send it to my agent and she says, this is too different. this is not what you do. So
Different is good.
I really like it, so I really hope that it someday gets published. But it just depends on, sometimes they just want you to sort of stay in your box. And so I have no idea if I could. I feel like it's still in my box, but it's on the edge of it. So we'll see what they say.
I wish you the best with it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for answering my questions.
This has been so much fun. Thank you.